mama's country music.
I am your mama's country music.
I am your mama's country music.
I'm definitely your mama's country music.
And I am your mama's country music.
This is your mama's country music.
I am your mama's country music.
I am your mama's country music.
I am your mama's country music.
Hi, my name is Kamara Thomas. You are watching the Country Soul Songbook Summit, and I am your mama's country music.
You are watching Country Soul Songbook.
So first we're going to introduce our moderator, Christina Jacobson. What's that?
Oh. I'm going to trade places with Christina.
Okay. Bye, Heather.
Bye. Hi, Christina.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning.
Hi, everyone.
Oh my gosh, I love your painting behind you.
Thank you.
Oh,
thank you.
Oh,
I needed some color.
So beautiful. So just tell me a little bit about yourself, Christina. We found you like so last minute, but it was like that it came down from the heaven where like Karen and the Star. I don't know if you know who Karen Pittleman is. She's one of she's here with the festival and did the Gale Opry. But she turned me on to you and she was like, oh, Christina Jacobson is doing all this amazing research in New Mexico, University of New Mexico. You should get in touch with her. And so we got in touch and kind of tapped you to dive into this panel with our amazing artist today.
Yeah,
so tell us a little bit about you.
I'm so thrilled to be a part of the conversation and super honored to get to talk with these amazing artists this morning. So I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm a cultural anthropologist, and I'm also an ethnomusicologist. And I teach at the University of New Mexico. I spent a long time singing and playing with Navajo country western bands on Navajo Nation. And that became a book called The Sound of Navajo Country, Music, Language, and Diné Belonging. I'm a student of the Navajo language. And yeah, I'm calling in from Albuquerque, New Mexico, ancestral and unceded homelands of Diné people, Apache people, and specifically Sandia and Isleta Pueblos. So yeah.
I get chills every time I hear whose land people are on. It's deep.
Yeah. Yeah. So fundamental and basic and so essential.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to hear all the questions you're going to ask everybody and to just get to just let these beings, speak to us and watch. I'm just like going to sit back and with just open arms, wanting to hear their perspectives and stories. So I'm going to go and why don't you introduce them however you think.
Sounds great. Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay, there we are. I'm expecting other human beings. Hi, good morning. Good morning. It's so good to meet you all. I am thrilled and honored and excited to be in conversation with y'all this morning. I woke up really early and was listening to all y'all's music and just jamming around my house. And it was really amazing. So I'm excited I thought we could spend a little bit of this time first having y'all introduce yourselves and then maybe talking a little bit about your own creative artistic process as artists and as songwriters. And then we can dive into a little bit maybe about your own thoughts on country music and Americana and see where the conversation goes from there. So I'll turn it over to y'all. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, maybe tell us where you're calling in from and anything else that feels important by way of introducing yourselves in any language you choose. Let's see, I'll tag someone. Okay, so Pura Fé, let's start with you, and then you can maybe tag the next person.
And I'm Pura Fé. I'm from the Tuscarora Nation and Taino Nations. originally born and raised in New York City. And my mom's family, where I lived for many years, is in North Carolina, in Tuscarora Territory. And my dad, well, I already said that. He's from Mount Nabo. He's Taino, but I never lived there. But I am now living for 5 years, living here in northern Saskatchewan, right on the tree line of the boreal forest. This is Cree, Métis, and Dene country right here. I hear 2 languages spoken lots, and by same people sometimes too. It's very cool. And right next to me is Surrey. Come on, sit up, Surrey, and say howdy. Say Nancy.
Good morning.
I have like 5 grandchildren that live with us. So so that's my life right now. And I'm married to Max Morin. So there you go.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see. Desiree, you want to introduce yourself? And then we'll go to Tracy.
Sure, yes. Good morning, Tansy, Desiree Dorion, Nikasin. My name is Desiree, and I'm from the Opaskwayak Cree Nation. That's where my paternal side of my family is from, which is in Treaty 5 in northern Manitoba. And I currently live in Treaty 2 territory, which is in central Manitoba, Canada. I'm a singer-songwriter. I've got 2 little girls, a 9 and 6-year-old, and I've been married for 13 years with my partner for far too long.
Thank you. Welcome. And last but not least, Tracy.
Good morning to all of you. It's really an honor for me to be here and to be included in all of this. I'm coming to you live from the Treaty 1 territory, Broken Head Ojibwe First Nation in Manitoba, Canada. That's where my mother's family comes from. And on my father's side, I come from the Treaty Territory 2, which is the Kisikuinin Ojibwe First Nation. I do have, in addition to Ojibwe, I have also Cree, Mi'kmaq blood, and I am also a bit of Russian and Irish and Scandinavian. I did my ancestry test, so I found out some new things about myself. And I have three children, all daughters, and they are 26, 22, and 18. So all my children are grown now. And I just wanted to kind of speak to what Kamara had talked about earlier, which was it being Fashion Week, and just to be comfortable in your skin and what you feel most comfortable in. So I'd like to share my fashion with you just real quick. It's funny she said that. I got my long johns on here and my mucklucks. And my robe that I wish I could just walk around in every day, all the time, because this is me and this is how I'm most comfortable. So thanks for having me.
Great, thank you. I'm pretty excited about this dress-up day idea. So I mean, we can take this conversation in so many places, but I think maybe we can start with this question of creative process for each of you. Where do your songs come from? What are some of your sources of inspiration? And maybe walk us through the process of a song or two that you've written recently, if you'd like, and kind of where that took you. It could be, could be very nuts and bolts, like, are words coming first? Are melodies coming first? Is something different coming first? And then, how do you craft your own songs and your own music? I'll open it up.
Well, I'll start. Let's just not look at each other.
I'm just kidding.
And sorry, I have to say you are beautiful. It's nice to see a little one with us today. So for me, I hear words first. I describe it as like hearing voices sometimes. And typically words will come before melodies for me. And depending on if each song comes differently, but depending on if sometimes songs will just pour out and sometimes they won't. So one song that I just finished up in July and is a song that I'm performing as part of the summit tomorrow. All I had was the title, and the title was 45, and I knew that I wanted it to be a metaphor between a Colt 45 and President Trump. And that's all I had. And I had a co-write with a friend of mine, Steve Mitchell, and I took this idea to him and I said, I think this would be kind of cool. Let's dig into it. And so I'll be sharing that song tomorrow. But that really was inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's been happening down south. I mean, we watch the news and we've got friends in the U.S. and extended family in the U.S. And so that's an example of how one song came about. Another example is a song that I wrote called Break the Chain, and I co-wrote that with my producer of my last album, Chris Bergaffney.
Yeah.
That song was really born at I'm the first generation on the paternal side of my family who did not have to attend a residential school or church-run school. So my grandmother's a residential school survivor and my dad is a day school survivor. And I think anybody who's a parent just wants a better life for their own children than the one that they grew up having. And that's really what that song was about. It was a prayer song, more or less, or a wish or a hope or of my own dreams that I have for my daughters. And so that was the inspiration of my song. But I find inspiration in different places all over where, I'm inspired by my children. I'm inspired by my family. I'm inspired by friends. I'm inspired by news, so for me, it comes from all around me.
Yeah. Thank you so much. How about for others of you? What are your sort of sources of inspiration in your own creative process, and what might that look like on a given day?
Who are you talking to?
So sorry. So Pura Fé or Tracy, what for you? What are your sources of inspiration?
I guess for myself, my inspirations, speaking, I guess, about a song specifically, I have a title track of my last album, which was quite a long time ago in 2012. The title track is Woman of Red. And that song came about because both of my late grandmothers attended residential school as very young girls. And I had the honor of assisting my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, in her application out here in Canada. We had, I guess, a application process that allowed you to share your experiences, and that was really tough for her. I mean, it was tough, for anybody to share when you're, so used to being afraid, of speaking about anything that happened to you in those schools. And it was such a gift to me, as far as understanding who I am and where a lot of the, dysfunction, I guess, and the disconnection more than anything between all of us. And with her being able to share that with me, I turned that, I guess, dark time of her life into something beautiful, into something creative, into a lesson, into healing for myself. I think it was really important for me because that was when I was first, around the time when I first began my healing journey, around 2012, early 2013. And that was a big catalyst, you know, her story, for me to beginning to understand what exactly that was, what the root cause was for all the disconnection and for all the pain and for everything that, you know, my grandmother wasn't comfortable doing, like telling her children that she loved them, you know, always being condemned and punished brutally sometimes for expressing, you know, affection. So that was really hard for her to do. She actually said that she never told her children she loved them till they were adults. And for fear of, you know, that just, you know, the PTSD and that trauma that came from her experiences firsthand. And then seeing, you know, that being passed down, you know, being learned, it's learned behavior, and realizing that that was the root of all of that, coming through my mother and myself, and then me passing that same distance and disconnection onto my children, and seeing how much that affected all of us. And so that song is titled Woman of Red, and that's who that was inspired by. I have another song, Survivor in Me, and that was, I started writing that around the same time, and that's going to be on my upcoming album. I don't know when that's going to be done. I've been working on that for about 8 years, and at this point in my life, I don't rush anything anymore. I'm not trying to be relevant. I'm not trying to do anything except just, you know, be in the moment of my healing and just trusting when the time is right, you know, things will all align and it will come out as it's needed. But the song is about, you know, going through sexual abuse as a young child, and, you know, having my first drink at 5 years old, you know, growing up around alcohol and, you know, parties and things like that. And a lot of the sexual abuse happening around that time when, you know, people couldn't see us and couldn't really be those protectors for us. So I actually took to the bush a lot to protect me. You know, a lot of people say that the bush is a dangerous place. I found that to be safer than where I was at. And so that song, Survivor in Me, talks about that journey and about how it seemed normalized, you know, to do that. And it was just very normal in my life to see and be around and exist in. So when I began the healing journey through that song, it actually, you know, brought me to a different place. Like it showed me where I've been, and it showed me that there was somewhere else that I could be, that I could, you know, not just exist in that past, but create my own future.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. And Pura Fé, what are some of your sources of inspiration? And if you want to share about your own creative process.
Sure. And it's good to listen to both of you and what you have to say. Also, because the topics of residential school and so forth. And I guess I'll start like, well, for me, I've always been creating music anyhow. That was always my safe place, even as a small kid. So creating music was just something, it was my first language, really. So coming into a family of complete singers for generations. So it was just the way we connected, usually on like big times when like holidays and so forth. So, and we would create music together, and even the little cousins, you know, we would come together and we would always take out all the pots and pans and just start going at it. And so I came from that creating all the time. So that was more like texture and mood and feelings and just rhythm and so forth. But as I grew older and I started writing my own music, because I really got tired of the music that I did to make money. And I did a lot of demo work and, singing for bands and blah, blah, blah. And I just got sick of the music. So I started to create my own music and play instruments. And so basically I wrote a lot about the history of my family and the homeland and where I come from. And it's a different experience coming from Southern, in the States than what happened in other parts of the States and up north into Canada, and where slavery was, a huge, and we were colonized very early, and so tracing that back and understanding the behaviors also from my family and my history. And I'm very mixed-blooded. I mean, so mixed. And all of that comes through me and through my music as well. Being not just Native and Indigenous to my homeland, but African, and particularly Igbo and Yoruba, and Scott Irish, and all these cultures that came together on our homelands there, that my family lived there for forever. But we took in so many people, and we had to hide. We had to hide our identity. And even on the census record, you won't see us written as Native people. You'll see us. You'll notice they had these little communities that were called Free People of Color. That was like code for an Indian community, right? So my grandmother's, half of her people came out of that situation, and the other half came out of slavery. So, and a lot of this intermarriage and people going in and out, and Indians were slaves. They were the first slaves. So we had a lot of Indian slavery in our family. And then we had diehards that were in the woods and refused to conform, go to school, go to their churches, speak English, all of that. And so they were still hunting and trapping with nets and bows, and they were a weirdo bunch on my family. But I'm proud of that. They were down upon, but I look at them like they're up here. So all of this stuff from talking to you about is crammed into lots of songs. And that's where that was pretty much, for some time, that was my inspiration. And exposing to everyone, look, this is what happened here. This is our story. And this is what I come from. And eventually that movie Rumble came.
Amazing film.
A piece of it, but so for me, music has been largely, a historical storytelling, along with the way music sounded with all of these different people together. That's enough for my mouth now.
Thank you so much. I remember on Thursday in the conversation with Charles Hughes, he was talking about, I don't know if you all tuned into that, but he was saying as part of this summit that musicians are historical actors, and that there's, one of the most important forms of storytellers that we have, and sort of, as a different way to sort of, for our cultures and our worlds to take musicians seriously. And I loved the way he framed that. He was like, no, like these are historians, right? Like we have to take musicians seriously. I realized they had me introduce myself while you all were in the backstage. So I don't even know if I got to formally introduce. Were you all able to hear that? I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't just popped under the screen and you were like, who is this random person? Okay, so you were able to hear that. All right, cool. Anyway, so Rich, do you all want to respond to each other's inputs at all on this before we sort of move on to another question, or is there anything there that you wanted to respond to beyond what you've already added?
Well, not really, but one time, Tracy and Leanne, they once invited me up to, was it Saskatoon, and to do a music workshop, like a songwriting workshop. And I'll never forget that. And I felt so embarrassed because someone told me not to bring my instruments and you're going to be doing this. And when I got there, it wasn't that at all. I thought and I walked away thinking, oh my God, they must have thought I was such an arrogant dork. But anyway, so I got a chance to apologize right there. My excuse. So,
oh gosh.
Yeah. It was interesting because they were like coming together to figure a process and how to help each other connect and write songs. So I thought that was really, I'd do it again.
You're so humble, like you're so sweet and you're so humble. And I remember you saying something like, well, you know, basically like, you guys know what you're doing, so I'll just sit here and, you know, enjoy the company. And it's like, okay. But I think it was more, you know, your presence. I mean, you're very, you have this energy about you that's very soothing and very calming. And it made us feel, you know, like, you know, she brought us, I know I can speak for myself, of course, but you know, you made me feel like I could do it, you know. It's like, okay, just keep doing what you're doing. You said, you know, like just keep on that process. And, you know, that was very helpful too, and encouraging. And it actually helped to build that confidence. So thank you so much for that. Your presence is, you know, always appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. We can't do it. That song in the beginning was badass. It started the show.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
A question I thought I'd love to hear from you all on is this question of, since this is a summit on country music in part, I was curious to hear how you all identify your own music. You know, this panel is about sort of, it's labeled as Country and Americana, but I'm curious, do you all, and your sounds are very different in a lot of ways too, right? And you have a very broad range as musicians. So I'm interested, like, do you identify as country or Americana artists? Or if not, how do you identify? Like, how do you hear your music and how do you hear your sounds? Or if there was like an extraterrestrial from Mars who was coming down to Earth for the first time and they were like, what do you do? What do you sound like? And you had to describe it to someone that knew nothing about music. What would you say? How would you describe it? I'll let whoever wants to speak first if someone's so moved. This format is a little awkward, I know.
I think it's kind of okay, good.
So I would describe my music as roots country typically, but I also think of myself as a storyteller. Many of my songs are story songs. I grew up, and that's one of the reasons I fell in love with country music. Like when I think back to who I grew up listening to, Tracy, you were talking about parties and that being, in your memory, and that was very similar, it sounds like, to how I grew up. I mean, we grew up with parties in the background and all the adults would be, drinking and partying, and there'd be music always playing. And, we were listening to like Loretta Lynn and Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard and Dolly Parton and, all of these amazing storytellers. And, my favorite, or one of my favorites was Kitty Wells. And Loretta Lynn. And I loved those women because they weren't afraid to say what they I can't swear because there's a little girl here, but to say what they meant, you know, like they weren't afraid to just be rebels and to do their own thing and to walk their own path. And that was one of the reasons why I fell in love with country music, because these women were strong, and they weren't, you know, Loretta Lynn was getting banned for talking about the pill in 1970 or whatever it was. And it's like, are you crazy? Like, this is, you know, and we think back retrospectively that seems so mild compared to, you know, what we see now. At the time, it wasn't. It was.
And that song is still controversial. Yeah.
and so that's what I fell in love with, and so I think, and I think sometimes it's hard to objectively look at our own work and, you know, put it into a box. But I think I would say I'm roots country with a storyteller theme throughout.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Tracy, how about for you?
I think that, I mean, you know, back to that history and back to the parties and stuff, there was a lot of music, and that was the most, you know, exciting thing and the fondest memory of my childhood was the music. Both my grandmothers sang, and people would come with guitars, and that's where I was introduced to music. You know, despite the alcohol and things around, you know, that sometimes, you know, actually brightened up, you know, people, who give them the courage, I guess, to really, you know, belt things out that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. And, you know, looking at the, you know, the lighter side of that. And they would sing together, both of my grandmothers. And, you know, I was very fortunate to grow up that way where, you know, both my late grandmothers were friends and they could sing and they loved to sing. And I'd honestly say that I did not like country music at all when I was growing up. To me, wow. You know, I mean, I loved hearing my grandmother sing. I was always so fascinated, but the songs were so sad to me, you know, and I was like, oh, I don't like this, you know, like, but I think I was always really sensitive that way to, you know, to the stories. I must have, like, at that time, I'm just realizing now, like, to be able to hear what they're saying and to connect with that, like to have that type of emotion, or like, you know, not being comfortable with it. I'm not too sure, but I really didn't like country music back then. And it wasn't honestly till I was around 19 when I think Faith Hill came out and she made country cool to me. Because she just had this brightness about her, and it wasn't sad, you know. Yeah. You know, I mean that in the most loving way. It was just something that resonated with me. So I started to open up to country in a different way at that time. I guess because, like in the past, it was, you know, people would get sad after they sang, or they'd, you know, maybe get angry, or there'd be a fight. So I think I sometimes, you know, connected that to that music and the way it made me feel more than anything. But I would have to say that for, you know, the purpose of being having to, I feel, be kind of forced to put ourselves into some kind of, you know, genre, I guess, so to speak. I would say that it's country influenced mostly, but I have always, I guess, recognized myself as a storyteller and a singer-songwriter. A lot of the things I do, I just do it like I take my guitar and I tell my stories through songs. So there's not really a genre like that, but wanting to fit into, you know, radio, or, you know, have someone recognize my music, it's almost like I had to choose something, and production wise, put that production to it, because that's what country is.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Thank you so much. Did you also, like, with your grandmother singing at that time, did you associate country as like being the music of an older generation? Was it also like trying to distance yourself from that at all when you were young?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just like, I believe that I just listened to the stories, and the stories were so, I guess, mature for my young ears to hear and to like what, you know, like, you know, you're the reason our kids are ugly and all these songs. I was like, it's somebody's fault.
Conway Twitty and the rest.
Yeah, like it was just so hard for me to like take in. I was like, I don't like how I feel, you know. But I do remember a record when I was young. I used to be, well, not just me, but my other family members, my sister, they would get us to be the DJs, right? And so they had records, and I remember this little 45, and it had the name Tracy Lynn on it. And there's an actual country artist named Tracy Lynn, and I was like, and I remember that was like, you know, I'm gonna be on a record someday or something. So.
That's so cute.
Awesome. Thank you. Pura Fé, how about for you? It's like, how do you identify your music, or what? I don't. Yeah.
I don't. Everyone else does.
Yeah.
And I laugh at a lot of the things that I've categorized under. So, but I do proudly take some credit with the women I sang with Sunny and Jennifer, as creating a genre for Native women and music, in terms of like just picking up our hand drums and singing and in harmony, and with like sort of like what we did was the idea was to, I love 49. You know, with the whole round dance and English and then vocal balls and whatever kind of lingo you want to put to that. That was how it began for us, or for me anyway. And I was singing with a jazz band. They asked me to come and open for Joy Harjo and American Indian Dance Theater. This is like 30 something years ago, right? This is forever. And those days we didn't do all that, like putting those things together, right? So I decided, I said to Sunny, who was singing backup for me in the jazz band, I said, what do you think if we just like forget the band and get some guys to come in and drum, and we just sort of take all these songs and make them like a 49? She says, that's a great idea. That's how it began. So we had our own type of genre, and we were singing harmony, and we had these guys drumming. Finally, that ended, and then we got Matoka Little Eagle, and then it was 3 women singing together, and we picked up hand drums, and then my cousin Jen came. So that's how that started, and then it changed. It changed again, where our grandmother, Jen and I, our grandma heard our recordings, and she says, oh, that sounds so good. She goes, that sounds just like the way we used to sing, only we sang with rattles, like shakers. And so when we like got the shakers and started foot stomping and doing all that old timey Southern kind of Indian music. And we were mixing that with English, and we were just creating. So I don't really have a name for what we do, but when I started asking Grandma, like, what did the music sound like when you were little? And we played her these stomp dance records, and she just, one time we played it for her, and she just began to cry. Mm-hmm. And at that point, she had really advanced in her Alzheimer's. But she would just start crying, and now and then she would tell us stories about her family back then. But so what we were tapping into is definitely from our ancestral roots. And I mean, you carry all that music in you from the beginning of time. And so, and all of that just comes out when you get in there, into that space and connecting, all that stuff comes out. It's almost like you know how the Tibetans have that knife to slam it into the ground, and that's what we become. So it's like you do that, and all of a sudden these songs, and even standing out on some of the plantation fields, I would stand there and like music would just like would just come out, and so you gather all this stuff from the roots of the ground, and so I'm going somewhere. I don't know where, but I need to stop. So there you go. That's enough.
Oh, no, thank you. It's fantastic to hear everything. And I think, you know, it's true that as musicians, we get put in these boxes of genre all the time, right? To market our music, to sort of say who we are, to define who we are. And I think it can be incredibly constraining. And so it's wonderful to sort of hear you reflecting on creations of entirely new genres, and also, you know, that sometimes, yeah, that's a huge creative limiter in a lot of ways. So it's yeah. The Pura Fé, there's some questions that have come in on the chat that I was asked to read to you. And so let's see, from one of the attendants, they were wondering if you would be willing to address someone who's listening right now. Let's see, I'll just read it. This is this person writing. I am wondering how Indigenous musical influence enters into your music. And the relationship or the intertwining of native and non-native music. Also, how do you incorporate native language into your songs? That's a question. I don't have the name of the listener that posted it.
It's a lot of questions.
It's a lot of questions. Feel free to more focus however you see fit.
All right. So, well, you know, that part in the movie in Rumble where that really, and I had no idea they were going to do that. They said, we have a Charlie Patton album. We're going to put it on. We just want to tape you playing that. So, and I was just, you know that he's like one of my favorites, right? And they said, no, we didn't know that. I'm like, I don't think they both, they're lying. Anyway, so I put the thing on, and so right there, it demonstrates, like when I asked Grandma, what did our music sound like? And so all that music you hear from the early, like Southern and Delta, it's so intertwined with Indian sound and rhythm as well as African, just as much. And you look at the early pioneers back then, they're coming from that dual ancestry. So of course it's going to influence them. I mean, just as much as like my Puerto Rican father's Latino music makes me get up and dance. So it's going to come through people, you know, when whatever you're made of is what you're going to be spewing. So when you listen to those old scratchy records from back then, and you hear Charlie Patton is going, you don't know which side you're listening to. So you're a sound that has completely married, and it just comes. I mean, I think I sound like that. It's like I think I sound like both my ancestries, and that to me is how that. I don't know how to explain it. You can't dissect it really. It's just what it is. And just the whole round dance beat, and you hear that in early blues. You hear it on the radio. When I turn on the radio, I hear Indian music. And people think I'm crazy, but I hear it, you know. And it, like even Taj Mahal said that when you hear that electric guitar wailing, he says that is a native sound. He goes, nowhere in Africa do you hear that. He goes, so that part of the blues is a very native. He says it sounds like the men sitting at a big drum. I said, I never even thought of that. I said, you're right. So you know, there's all kinds of, so when they say, how do you incorporate? I'm like, but I am the incorporation. I am those crossroads, you know, so it's like, I can't, you know, so Yeah, that's my answer to that question.
No, yeah. Thank you so much for that answer. I think also it reminds me of the conversation from Thursday on the summit about, you know, how country and soul were broken apart by the music industry and how they were, you know, from the same root and from the same tree, and how that was this very artificial sort of dissection that's had some really damaging legacies for so many musicians. And it reminds me, you know, you're speaking to that from another part, right? That it can't be sort of torn apart. It is one sound.
Right.
That's very powerful to hear. There's another question that came in for you also, Pura Fé, from Karen in the Sorrows. And let's see. I would really love if Pura Fé could talk more to this quote of hers from an interview back in 2005. Especially if she has any thoughts about this in relationship to country music too. And the quote is, okay, let's see here. The call and response thing in blues and gospel and its modulation is what Indians call stomp dance. The blues shuffle rhythm is a round dance, the heartbeat of native music. Taj Mahal talked about this with me. I've been singing with Lee Gates, who is Albert Collins' cousin, and he pointed out how similar my wailing was to the sound of Lee's guitar. Taj said that the wailing guitar you hear in rock and blues is the sound of the powwow singers. Nowhere in Africa do you hear that kind of guitar playing. It's obviously a native expression. End quote. I don't know if you want to expand or respond to that.
I think I kind of said everything in the last, yeah.
I think it sort of encapsulates those themes really, really nicely. That was from someone who's Karen in the Sorrows was asking that question. So thank you for that. And so I think I'm trying to be a good timekeeper here. Okay, it looks like we're about out of time in terms of our own discussions, but yeah, maybe we could end. I'm wondering, and as a songwriter myself, sort of, you know, talking with you all from my home and teaching remotely and just thinking about this world of COVID and how it's impacted us as artists. I didn't know if we could maybe just close on sort of your own reflections about how it has been for you to be an artist in the time of COVID-19 and ways that you're moving your own art forward in ways that feel meaningful to you in this really challenging and difficult time. I'm also interested in, there's so much conversation about the really, really difficult parts about this, right? Which are so real. But I also know there's beauty coming out of this, and I know there's amazing art coming out of this time. So I'm interested if you have reflections on that. And I think we'll end on that note to make sure we leave space for the next folks that are going to be coming on. Desiree, do you want to start, and then Tracy, and we can end with Pura Fé?
Sure. So I released my most recent album in February of this year, and it feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
It honestly feels like years ago that project came out, because I've been, like I said, I've got 2 little girls, and I also have a full-time job, but I've been touring pretty heavily and working pretty heavily in music since about 2014. And I've always thrived on being busy and, you know, having a million plates up in the air. And that was like my happy place. And crazy. And so we were on tour in March, and my publicist called, and we were going to radio station in Alberta, and says the radio stations don't want you in anymore. And I said, what are you talking about? She says, well, haven't you been watching the news? And I said, well, no, I've been on tour. What's going on? And she says, the COVID numbers are coming up and they don't want you there because you've been all over the place, and they'll do it as a phoner and whatever. And so I was with my guitar player on the road, and I said, wow, like this kind of feels apocalyptic, you know? And And so we had 12 hours to drive home and talk about what was happening and analyze what was happening in the world and kind of process some of this. And, at that time, and I still feel this way, I felt really thankful that we live in an area where we're not densely populated. We've got wide open space.
Yeah.
And initially I was panicked because I had invested so much money into this last project. And I'm always thinking from like a marketing standpoint and business, like I need to get my investment back. I've got kids to feed and I've got, food that needs to go on the table. And so I'm thinking that all the time. And so I was panicked a little bit. And then I came home and we went ice fishing. It was 30 below. And me and my husband and my 2 little girls, we went ice fishing that weekend and we made a great big fort on the ice. Like we cut out chunks of ice and blocked them on top of each other and made kind of almost like an igloo, but it didn't have a roof. And I thought, man, like I could get used to this. I could get used to staying home and hanging out with my family and, getting to know my kids a little bit better. And the last few months have really been that. And I'm getting emotional because I've been on the road so much that it's like, holy crap, but too, I never expected to get emotional. But to really be able to connect with your family and to connect with your kids, and it's felt freaking awesome. I've loved it. And I've been doing a ton of writing, which I often, you're working the road so much, you often don't have time to focus on your art. So I've really had an awesome opportunity to go inward and to do that, to pay a lot more attention to, songwriting, and which was my first love. And so it's been really great getting to connect with my family in that way. And am I still a little bit nervous, a little bit panicked about this record that I've invested in? Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, but I think the payoff will be worth it, spending time with my kids and my hubby. And, we've had a lot of bonfires and we've been doing a lot of just like day-to-day regular things that I just haven't been home to do for the last, 6 years or 7 years or whatever it's been. So I've really been thankful for this time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there's so much to relate to there. Very, very, very powerful. Yeah. And Tracy, how about for you?
Well, kind of just continuing that of which Desiree had spoken about. I find that this I'm just going to say, agenda of this virus and, has actually been a blessing in disguise. And it's actually created the space for self. It's created the space for building the relationship with ourselves and with our loved ones. But it's also brought up, the dark side or the shadow side of who we are as human beings, being spiritual beings, I should say, experiencing what it's like to be a human with, trauma. And a lot of that trauma has come up for many people. I know personally myself, it's been a time of, shedding and releasing and things just coming up that, are purposeful for me and for the people that were in my area or people in my life, but also the world, for us to recognize it as such. And I've been doing my healing it'll be 8 years now, concentrated healing on myself in January coming up here. And so I know that I've been afforded that time to, be in solitude and be with myself and, make myself face things, that I was too busy in the past to face, focusing on things that, I loved, but what really mattered, I think, is what came up in this time. And so what I've done is I've switched the way that I've been doing things with myself. Even I've come to create this new business. It's a spiritual based business of just my experiences and what I've done to help myself heal from the intergenerational trauma. It's allowed me that time to focus even more so than I have in the past 8 years. I've seen it, come up in a lot of other people's lives. There's addiction and a lot of pain that comes with that, but that literally is a part of who we are as humans, is to accept that that's a part of who we are and what we are to experience, and to learn skills on how to work through that, and to accept that those are things that shaped us, and those are the things that were necessary. Sometimes it was a catalyst for change within our existence and our perspective on life. And it's true. I mean, it's so important that we realize and recognize how important we are first and foremost, and then what's most important to us. So I feel like this time has been a really true a blessing, in disguise.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. And Pura Fé, how about for you? How has COVID been sort of for you? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just want to say it's like testimonials here, right? It's like amazing testimonies to really, actually, the beautiful side, yeah. We are, so whoever's out there listening, whether you're an alien or a whatever. Anyway, I know I'm crazy, but well, it's, I can relate to both of what you both said so much. And yes, March was my last time out and about. I did kind of quit going overseas. It's over a year now because I felt like there was something coming, and I didn't want to go so far away over the water. So I decided I was only going to take jobs that was on the rock, so I was only doing things in Canada, US, and not even further south across the southern border. And anyway, it's been something else. We took all the children in, and we have 5 of them homeschooling. That's what it's like for us. They did cut, they had closed up the villages, with checkpoints, and some people couldn't even go to the big cities to get dialysis or go shopping. So what happened was, my first instinct was like, we have to stock up food. We have to plant. We need a big deep freezer. I had to get food grindings and all kinds of manual. That's where I went, so I was just thinking we need to be prepared, and so my husband was really great, like planting gardens, and helped a little, not a whole lot. I did, but anyway, so we're stocked up. So I think about all these people all around the world watching everything. Your whole life is this computer, is the internet. So we connect to each other like this. We watch things. Some things are staged. You could see a war being staged in all over the place. You see all kinds of, So you don't know what to believe, but you know one thing that you can believe in is that soil out there, that snow that's coming down, that sweat lodge where we sitting there so we could like go everywhere and pray and connect to everything. That's our life. And we pray a lot now. And there's a lot of people suffering, and even in the village, not just from COVID, but just drug addiction and so forth. So this kind of gives it a chance. If we were big enough, we can actually make a difference. So that's what this to me is the way to use it, is to use it to our advantage to make things better. And it's not easy. It's really hard. So as they say, medicine works both ways. So we have that choice, right? We're given that choice. So we just have to dig deep and just try hard not to get angry, not to get too confused, not to get frustrated, to try and stay grounded and not be angry. I have a hard time with that. All of this is so intense, and I'm intense anyway. So you can imagine. I cook, clean, and scream at everybody. So that's how it is for me. I watch a lot, and then I saw Jackie Bird's little post today on Facebook, and she's like making art and music every day. So that's the way to connect to the divine, everything, right? Spirit, that everything is made out of light and sound. So I think if we just continue like that, we can be okay. Anyway, that's enough of me. Yeah, I've known a lot of people to fall from COVID, a lot of close friends that are no longer here. And then you see everything that's going on in Dene country down south.
Yeah.
So it's scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. The songwriter Mary Gaucher talks about creative process and songwriting as a form of spiritual electricity. And this conversation for me has felt like that. It's been an incredible breath of fresh air. And I haven't met you all in person. I hope that I get to someday, but it's been a real privilege and an honor to meet you through this format, and to have listened to your songs and to continue listening to your songs. For me, songs are like a kind of food, and there's such nourishment. So thank you for your incredible art, all three of you. And I'll look forward to future conversations. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Yes. Okay.
Are we?
You are watching Country Soul Songbook.
Now, how does that old song go?
My dear sir, what old song?
Well, you know, sir, the old nursery rhyme bit, 10 Little Indians. There's a copy of the rhyme hanging on the wall in my room upstairs.
That's funny. There's a copy in my room, too.
And mine.
Well, then who's with it? Who's got the first line?
10 little Indians went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were 9.
That's it. Strictly Nurseryville. Then what happened?
9 little Indians staying up quite late. One ran away and then there were 8.
There's a copy of the song on the piano in the lounge, too. Mr. Owen seems very interested in little Indians.
8 little Indians traveling to heaven. One met a pussycat, then there were 7. 7 little Indians chopping up sticks. The chopper finished one of them, and then there were 6. 6 little Indians playing with the hive. A bumblebee stung one, and then there were 5. 5 little Indians going in for law. One got chancery, and then there were 4. 4 little Indians feeling all at sea. A red herring swallowed one, and then there were 3. 3 little Indians walking in the zoo. A big bear hugged one, then there were 2. 2 little Indians sitting in the sun. One gets all frizzled up, then there was 1.
It's all right, General. He's down to his last little Indian.
Thank God for that.
1 little Indian boy left all alone. Shh. So he went out and hanged himself. And then there were none.
And now, sir, will you be good enough to cease that infernal noise?
No longer ashamed to be me. Now I know who I am. I'd walk with my eyes to the ground, so I couldn't see the beauty in the people like me. The courage to face the memories. I am a woman of brave resilience, my spirit undead. I look to forgiveness. It's the only way to move ahead, and I dream, I pray, we all walk this way. The youth and our elders survive generations of pride, coming back, reclaiming our lives with humbling faith, compassion and humility, the courage to face the memories. I am a woman of brave resilience, my spirit undead. I look to forgiveness. It's the only way to move ahead, and I dream, I pray, we all walk this way. All walk this way. I dedicate this to all the survivors of the residential and boarding school plague that swept across our nation. To forgive is to gift yourself the freedom to heal. You make me strong. I am a woman of resilience, my spirit undead. I look to forgiveness. It's the only way to move ahead, and I dream, I pray, I
called Della Blackman. I wrote this for my grandmother's auntie who was killed by the Ku Klux Klan in the early 1900s here in North Carolina. And this is in memory of her and the story that I was told. And it's a common story. So,
got married beneath my daddy's oak tree. You cried as he walked me down the aisle. We used to lay awake and talk about our future and smile. I remember a time when you were a proud man. Nothing in the world could bring you down. 12-hour days, well, they were nothing. Oh, but now you see the sunrise in the bottom of your bottle. You only come to life talking on your bar stool. You go numb to feel, you go blind to see. Call me crazy, but I ain't gonna be. It hasn't been the same since the black clothes. It hasn't been the same since '03. But all the promises we made, they still mean something to me. You see the sunrise in the bottom of your bottle. You only come to life talking on your bar stool. You go numb to feel, you go blind to see. Call me crazy, but I ain't gonna leave. They call me crazy for thinking that you're gonna change. They call me crazy for waiting for the world to spin the other way. You see the sunrise in the bottom of your bottle. You only come to life talking on your bar stool. You go numb to feel, you go blind to see. Call me crazy, but I ain't gonna leave. They call me crazy for thinking that you're gonna change. They call me crazy for waiting for the world to spin the other way. Oh, they call me crazy.
You are watching the Country Soul Songbook Summit. My name is Cary Morin, and I am your mama's country music. She sings just like an angel in the night. She's just right for me. But she is not within my sight. I don't want to see the light of day anymore. It comes together bigger than the two of us could ever be alone. Don't walk away, don't leave me here all alone in my blue Delta home. There's a photograph of you in my mind I keep, where everyone can see in any weather. I will walk to you and show you we can live a life that we together own. Don't walk away, don't walk away, don't leave me here all alone in my blue Delta home. You are my favorite melody. I am a witness to the light that only you can see. Don't walk away, don't walk away, don't leave me here all alone in my blue Delta home.
Yeah, this next tune is from that same album, just came out. The album is called Dockside Saints. This tune is called Jamie Ray. Muddy road I'm walking, muddy road, baby, I walk alone. Jamie Ray, can't you hear me talking? I'm on my way, Jamie Ray, baby, you know it's true. My footprints lead to beside you. I can't stop thinking of you. I'm gonna make a life for you, Jamie Ray. Well, the sky cleared up for a bit last night. Smiling on me was Grandmother Moon. Well, she lit up my way on the road to you. I'm on my way, Jamie Ray, baby, you know it's true. Why don't you say what your heart wants to? I can't stop thinking of you. Gonna make a life for you, Jamie Ray. Mama says you best stay home, son. No, that girl ain't for you, Mama. I hear what you say, but I gotta get to Jamie Ray. Can't you hear me talking? Oh, babe, I hope you know it's true. My mind can only see us two. I can't stop thinking of you. I'm gonna make a life for you, Jamie Ray.
This next tune was written about an event that actually took place with my family. I was told about it when I was about 3 or 4. Don't really remember that, but I found out a couple years later. Anyway, it's a story that my great-grandmother told when we used to live up in Montana years ago. This is called Valley of the Chiefs. I'm a grandmother now, but in my 16th year, I played with friends on the prairie. If progress would allow, we'd live forever in the Valley of the Chiefs. We traveled the trail in the heat of the day. Horses approaching, I thought I heard. 5 men appeared and they took us away. We are the children of the long big bird. Traveling as captives into the night, taken far from the valley. No tears were cried towards the eastern light, because 5 men would die. Our captors slept and the night watch too. 5 men surprised when we counted coup. We took their horses into the night, back to the Valley of the Chiefs. Yeah, that's a true story. So, excuse me, this last tune I want to do for you is, it's called Carmela Marie. nothing else, you're sure of yourself. I could only hope to be. Come on down to my place, Carmela Marie. You always get what you ask for. Now I gotta come into me. Come on down to my place, Carmela Marie. I come face to face with a lioness. She's an overachiever, exceeds to excess. I long to be with her for the rest of my days. You know I love my baby in every way. Well, if nothing else, you're sure of yourself. I could only hope to be. Come on down to my place, Carmela Marie. You always get what you ask for. Now I gotta come into me. Come on down to my place, Carmela Marie. I'll always be with her, she confesses. She got the knee-high boots and the Levi dresses. The love of the highest quality. Don't be gone too long, baby, come back to me. Well, if nothing else, you're sure of yourself. I could only hope to be. Come on down to my place, Carmela Marie. You always get what you ask for. I gotta come into me. Come on down to my place, Carmela Marie. Come on down to my place, Carmela Marie. Come on down to my place, Carmela. Carmela Marie. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Cary Morin, and I hope to see you again real soon. Thanks.
You are watching Country Soul Songbook.
Hey y'all, you're watching the Country Soul Songbook Summit.
My name is Reverend Sekou, and I am your mama's country music.
It's really important for all of us to vote because that is the one way of many ways, and possibly the most important way that we can have our voice heard and to get people in office that are going to create legislation and policies that promote equity and equality and representation. So the whole point of democracy is that the people, not the king or the queen, the people decide what's going to happen in our country. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And if you've had any apathetic thoughts or feelings of hopelessness, please reconsider and do your part. So thank you, and hope you can make it out to the polls, or at the very least, get your mail-in ballots done, and let's see what happens in November.
Oh, hi. Hi, everybody. We hope that you have been enjoying the Sunday Country Soul Songbook Summit Day. We kind of I said this at the beginning, but I'll repeat it. We, as we were gathering the programming for the summit and we started putting Sunday together, it became clear pretty quickly that Sunday was going to be focused on just kind of on sacredness and on being, like focusing on spiritual care for ourselves. And from what we started out with an amazing message from Rev Sekou, who talked about really the artist's role in society, and this idea that we're noble, we're not better than, but that we have a call to say what we see. And we will definitely have replays of a lot of what has happened at the summit in case you didn't catch it. But it was very inspiring to just sit in that idea of like, what is my responsibility as an artist, and what am I here to offer, right? And we've had, such a wonderful kind of arc to the day, and I'm really, really excited to speak with Pura Fé about all the things. So let me introduce her. Pura Fé is an artist. You know what? I'm not gonna call her anything. I'm gonna let her name herself. She doesn't need me to be saying anything about who she is. She'll let us know. So let's just bring her on and get to the chatting. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to see you again.
Thank you. Same here. Okay.
I heard so much. Yeah, I'm like, I was so glad that there was so much that got covered yesterday, because I was like, great. We'll see that Pura talked about all those things, so we can talk about these other things I really want to talk about.
Okay.
First of all, your hair is down. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, you too. I was thinking that while you were talking. I said, today we are free.
Yeah, we are free. I started out with it under a hat. Then I took the hair out and put the hat on. And today I was just like, get into a cap.
It looks beautiful.
Thank you. So I don't even know where to start. But maybe we'll start. Can we start with just talking about the voice? The voice. And, a lot of people who are here still, one of the last things that Phil Cook played in his spiritual helpline program was from your Ulali project. And, where I don't want to say the name of it because I don't think I can pronounce it properly, but it's the one where you're all, in the YouTube video, you're sitting in that circle, you're dressed beautifully, and you're all doing your drums, and you keep going higher and higher and higher and higher, and in Ulali.
Okay. Do
you know which one I'm speaking of?
Are we singing anywhere in English? A little bit?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
What the heck song is that? That's Idle No More, but
Idle No More. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, Idle No More.
I guess I could pronounce it, but but I just assumed that but there's this moment toward the end where you all you go in and you're already singing so powerfully and so, in different places. And it sounds like everyone is at the very edge of their vocal range. And then at the end, it just pushes higher and higher and opens and opens and opens. And and we said afterwards, we were like, that was basically sound healing. It hits you right in the sternum and like opens you up. And so I wanted to ask you, how you experience your voice, how your voice, if there was a moment when your vocal power kind of appeared to you, if it was always there as a little girl, like how did it begin, and how did it open, and how did it expand over the course of your career, through up till now?
Well, through my mom. So her voice is the first one that I heard, and her sisters and my grandma. So that was my first language. Is the voice is my very first language through singing. My mom says she could hear me when I would wake up and I would be in the crib. She says she could hear me from the other room going, ah, because I was imitating her, So that's my first language, and that's how I mean, it's literally like that. That's how I entered it. So it was always singing was very it was everything really. And then just hearing my mom and her sister singing. And they were part of they went to a church. My grandma was not religious, but when she was raising her daughters in Harlem, and she said she didn't want them to get pregnant, so she started taking them to a church. So, but,
get a little guilt on them.
Yeah. This is in New York City. So she fortunately they ended up in the church that's called that was Pastor Gensel's church, and he was the jazz minister, and he had people like Miles Davis and Olatunji even. I mean, and Joe Newman, the trumpet player. I mean, they were all they would come in and help do the services. They would step in and like be the music. That's when he moved more to the east side on 7th. It was called St. Peter's Gate, but when it was on Broadway in 92nd, it was called Advent Lutheran Church. Anyway, there was so much music there that I witnessed as a little kid. Mm-hmm. And even John Motley Choir was there, and he would bring his whole choir. Oh, I would sleep in the pews. That was my, so my introduction to voice was very extensive, I'd say. Mm-hmm. And just music and choirs. And my mom also sang for the Duke Ellington Orchestra in his Sacred Concert series. So I traveled with her. Yeah. So I traveled with her, and she became very close to Duke's sister, Ruth. And Ruth is the one that brought her into singing for Duke's Sacred Concert series. My mother's not a jazz singer at all. She's an opera singer. But he had her do, there was a few pieces that he would carry 4 singers, like lead singers, and he would go to all these different congregations, and they would sing these pieces that he wrote for his Sacred Concert series. So she was one of the women that sang. So I remember those tunes as a little kid, and going to visit Duke and Ruth. In fact, we even lived in that house on 106 in Riverside later on. And so I was around a lot of music, and Ruth even hired me to play for like homeless shelters. And that's where I met some others. I met Kenny Burrell that way, and George Caldwell. Anyway, it's just been an ongoing life full of music. And, but the vocal thing for sure, like my mother and her sisters singing together, and they were called the Monk Sisters, and we're related to Thelonious Monk. And Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you come from this like long line of singers, right?
Yeah. Yes. So the monk side is the paternal my grandfather, my mother's father.
Mm-hmm.
And the Blackwells and Sanders, that's my grandmother. So they both came from like music. And
Wow.
So their families are really from Sampson County, North Carolina. And they're Tuscarora Indian, and they're also African and Scott Irish. So that right there is a book of music.
Yeah. That pretty much is all. It's like you basically got all of the storytelling lines like right there. Like
Yes.
all the storytelling lineages just in Pura Fé.
Yes. Oh,
and you can hear it. You can hear it in the music. I mean, it's amazing, you know, like when you listen to your whole catalog of music, it's like it's mind-blowing how uncategorizable it is and how, you know, how genre defying it is. And you know, did you kind of grow up like when it comes to lineage, did you grow up always knowing what your lineage was? Were those stories told in your family, or was that something you had to go search out?
Well, we got more once we cousins grew up in New York and drove home. And that was led by my cousin Eric Jarvis. I don't know if you know him, the scientist. So yeah, he was out of Duke, had a lab there, neuroscientist. Anyway, he's an amazing human being. And so he was the one that told us we all need to go home. And so we did. And so we learned a lot more. But we definitely, I mean, I grew up knowing quite a lot, I think, just from my grandmother and her sisters and my grandfather. They told lots of stories. And there's just something that gets transmitted, you know, even without words, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and in some ways, I was the child in the family, other than Eric, that was the one that remembers things from other lifetimes. And for me, my purpose in being in this world had a lot to do with connecting everything from before so we could go further. That was totally, definitely, even at the age of 4, I was sitting at the big Thanksgiving table at the feast with my family and just like putting people in their place. Like just saying, you're Indian, you know, and stuff like that. And Uncle Pete would be the one to laugh. Yeah, so I was, and I would pick their brains. Grandma's sisters, Aunt Aura and Aunt Mandy. I asked them lots of questions, and Aunt Addie, and they came and visited a lot in our house. So I learned a lot just from looking at them, just from watching how straight Aunt Mandy would sit. And she would cross her hands and feet. She was very proper. So I learned a lot from them. Just and they are beautiful. They were really brown, and they had very like Aunt Aura's eyes were like Asian. They were so like a blend, beautiful and tall. And Grandma was tiny, and her sisters were very tall. Like my mom's real tall. All these things are a part of who we are. The things that we carried till now. So yeah, I'm going off in all kinds of weird directions. You better.
I love it. Keep going.
Put a barrier
that's
somewhere.
What we're here for. We should have called it Down the Rabbit Hole with Pura Fé, because rabbit holes are my favorite thing of all time. I'm like, go, keep going.
Well, they all sang, those women, Grandma's sisters, and then their mother and her sisters. So we can count, going back 8 generations But from my mom back is 8. We can count those, and in the last 4 generations from my mom back is 7 sisters each time. Isn't that weird?
What? Oh my God! I'm like, what is the cosmic? Like, what is the cosmic meaning of that? I must know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but and then even on Grandpa's side, it was 4 sisters that were from the Coles plantation, Willis Coles, and which is the Bentonville battleground, and that whole area there was Tuscarora Village, and my family, Grandma said Blackwells and Coles, we believe, come from the Blackwells, and they were right across it. That whole area was theirs. And all those Indians in that area, that was that whole place was theirs. And then, then
it got turned into a plantation, like layered on top.
Yes, there was county lines are put up, and they split people up. And so you have those people, some in Harnett, some in Sampson, and some in Johnston. They split the people up like that. That's how they do it everywhere. They'll just like right in between
kind of stuff.
Right.
Wow.
So, but that whole area was theirs, and my family were the last to be the ones that refused to conform. They didn't want to speak the language. They spoke their own language still. During the Civil War time, they were still there. And and there's people, like I heard them say things like they were so poor, they were still wearing leather. We're talking about buckskin clothes, and no one would trade or buy with them. And they were known for instigating slave uprisings. So, and
none of this surprises me about your family lineage. Like, yep, sounds about right.
Yeah. So, but across the road was eventually were the Coles plantation and the Cole sisters, and I'm pretty sure that they were part of the Blackwells, but they were taken in as slaves, like they were cooking and cleaning for Willis Coles and stuff, and then they ended up next door where there was the Monk plantation, Archibald Monk, and most of his slaves were African. So there were 4 Coles women that were Tuscarora and 4 Monk men that were African that married. And in each family, there's some stuff that came out of, like Thelonious came out of one of those unions. Art Monk, the football player, came out of one. And then they started talking about Lou Rawls. I'm like, all right now, I don't think so. So, so we would go to these Monk family reunions, and it was really interesting because my cousin Eric said, he goes, have you noticed something? He said, we were all mingling together, but by the end of the night or whatever, the reunion, you would see that all the very dark people would be on one side, and then the very light ones, like the Indians, on the other side. And I was like, I said, oh my God, you are so right. So there's that thing. It happens, right. And it doesn't even mean anything other than it just happens. So anyway.
Wow. I mean, what's amazing. And I think, I'm like drawing all sorts of strange conclusions, of course, but what seems to be resonating is this idea. It just feels like Americans, in a general sense, we're so disconnected from our ancestry and from our land. The idea of like when I place my feet on the ground, that ground is like incredibly important and incredibly potent and incredible. It's like it's where I'm getting like my sustenance, like truly my sustenance. And just hearing you like even speak all of your knowledge about, you know, about your lineage. It's like, it's almost like I can see the power lines just like flowing through you, you know? And it's something we've been talking a lot about this weekend, that like, that if these negative forces that are swirling about and wreaking their havoc and making their mischief, you know, that is the first thing that people do to take away someone's power, right? It's like separate them from the land, separate them from community, you know, separate them from their language, separate them from the things that really give them their power. And like, and that the remedy must then be to dive back into our lineage, you know, find out what our ancestors, who they are, you know, accept that whatever that is. And I think I read something in your bio that like really connected with me about, you know, when people call you an activist and you're like, I don't really consider myself an activist. You said, it's just that I take responsibility for the lineage that I represent here. And so I must do this, and this, right? And I think for a long time, you know, I'm mixed race, but I was raised mostly, you know, I knew the Black side of my family, but I was raised mostly by my white mother, and so I spent the majority of my life in white spaces where I became, you know, it takes a lot to unpack, but it's like I see now, it's like I learned to please, you know, that because it made me feel safe and secure, feeling like an other in those spaces, right? And but as I've really begun to take responsibility and to recognize my Black lineage and dive into it more and understand more and ask my relatives more about where we come from and find out more about the land, you know, that as I dive into that, the power starts to flow. And it's like, oh, this is who I am. This is where I come from. This is the real thing. And so I wonder, you know, what's that?
Spirit,
the real thing, right? And so I wondered if you have, you know, I know the way I found that was like through ritual, you know, through really creating relationship with the land, you know, in a very real way, and talking to the trees and talking to the animals and talking to everything that surrounds me. And I wonder if, do you have any advice or ritual or anything you would share with people who feel that disconnection really profoundly, you know, who can't feel that connection to their roots or to where they come from or their ancestors?
Yeah, Rita Coolidge asked me questions like that some years ago. I think I think it's really important to put your feet on the land of your ancestors, where you come from. I think that's extremely important. I know that because I know that once that's what we did. You know, we went home and we went right on to our graveyards. And
this is in North Carolina.
And our graveyards, a lot of them, that the ones that were on slave plantations, they would be in the middle of a field where you would see cedar trees growing way up, really old. And when you walk towards them and you get in, suddenly you see their mounds. and that the trees were good. And my mom told me, she goes, "Oh, our people way back, we used to bury them and then plant a cedar tree on top." So that's an old thing from, before the colonists came over.
Wow.
But you would see that in the middle of, those were slave graveyards. So there were both Black and Indian in those, those graves like that. But let me tell you, when we would stand out there and we would go inside those clusters of trees, and we would leave tobacco, we would sing, we would just hang out. And it would supercharge you. I wrote that song going home there from being inside one of those clusters. And and so I suggest that people go to the land where your families are from. You'll get a lot from the earth itself, you really connect like that. So, it was so strong, and I'm going to tell you this really quick story. This is bizarre. A friend of mine named Floyd Fable was from Canada. He's a Cree. He told me about a dream he had, and he couldn't understand it. He said that he was in some strange place. He couldn't understand. The terrain was very different, and the trees and everything. And he told me the soil was very black. He says he went and it looked like a graveyard. And he said, and this Black woman in a white dress came up to him, and she brought him to, he said he couldn't understand. It was a tree that was half man and half woman. So I said, wow, that's really interesting. And that was the end of that. Maybe an hour or two later, we're still hanging out in this office talking away. And I started telling him about my experience when I went home and we visited my family on the Lee plantation. And I told him about the graveyard there, and that there was a couple that was buried there. And then they placed the tree on top, and he goes, "What?" And he goes, and I said, "Oh my God." And so he dreamt about where I was with my family. Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
So to me, that meant something was coming to give confirmation that, and that's why I wrote that song, "Tell Them That I Know."
Yes.
Tell my ancestors that I know. So so I really think people should always go and place their feet on the land of their ancestors. You'll connect with them. They're always there. Everything is there. You are that. Right. You're everything. Home is here. So just connecting it. And I think that's the way.
It's like it's so easy to forget that, like I said, we're being constantly the paradigm that is ending, the old, we'll just call it the old paradigm. It makes its bread and butter by kind of separating us from our bodies and making us these kind of like mental beings that are just like, thinking about stuff and thinking about, I don't know what we're thinking about. But like just the fact that we are physical beings, and that every part of my physical being has truly come from the earth. That like my mother ate the food from the earth that became my body, and that everything is stored in the earth. All of that information is still there. It's still stored there. And then in such a real way, and like, it's like, it sounds so like, whatever, it sounds like what it does to whoever, but it's like, we know that for sure, that like my body comes from the earth, and everything my body knows will be stored in the earth when this body goes back to the earth,
Right.
Wow. I've got to go back to Arkansas, it sounds like.
Yes. Well, what you just said reminds me, it's like the reason why it connects like that when you put your foot to the earth. And it's just like, you know, as pipe carriers, and the bowl part, it comes in two. The bowl part is the woman, is the earth, right? It's the heart. It's the red, you know. So, and the stem is the male. So it's like you put them together and you are activating that connection from spirit to land. It's the same as you and your feet on that earth of that place. You become activated with that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah. And
I really
I saw a I would love to talk about just visions, how you approach visioning, I guess. You know, I saw an interview with you where you were talking about these moments when you would like, so I think the interview was maybe asking you like, you know, like, how do you come up with songs or something? And you're like, sometimes I just go stand on a place on the earth and I can feel the power that it just goes, you know, it just like comes up and out. And I think you were talking about that, and you said there was a moment where you could really see, you know, all of your people, all of the, you know, the whole line of your ancestry just looking at you, smiling at you. And you know, I would love to know, especially for artists, you know, we get these visions, right? We get these visions, and it seems and we kind of, and like I said, in this paradigm, we look around and we're like, is this real? Like, am I getting this vision? And you know, how do I follow it? Or like, is everyone going to think I'm crazy that I've seen this thing, when it's so, I think, obvious to me anyway, or, you know, to like a lot of the artists that I'm in community with, that like, this is an ancient knowledge, you know, that to be able to see is one of the, you know, some of us get that given as one of our gifts, you know, is to be able to see these things. And so I would love to, you know, I would love to know more about how you experience vision, and you know, how you use it, or how you use it in creative practice, you know, to either write songs, or even like how it seems like when I look at like how you've conducted yourself, you know, in music, in your career, and with like there's no place along that line where one could doubt your creative integrity with what you're doing, you know, like I don't think there's, and I don't know, I guess you'd have to tell me if there were ever points where you lost your way, or, you know, how do you keep yourself, you know, in the direction of the vision, you know?
Well, you're always connected, right? You're plugged in. From the moment you're born, you're plugged in as that individual you're born to be. I think when it's so simple, I think it's like as soon as you're not feeling, if it feels not sure-footed, or if it feels uncomfortable, or if it just doesn't feel right, then that's when you've lost your way, right?
Like when you do something that, like the doubt is there, but you do it anyway, or something, like it doesn't feel.
Yeah. Or if you're doing things for the wrong reason, you know. I think if we stay true, we do our best to stay true to what our strength is. We all know we have a strength, and if that's what you use to, you know, do what it is that you can do, then I think that's the key. That's one key anyway. You know, to stay within your own, what you have, what you're born with, what your strengths are. And some people, I think, believe that they don't have any, and that's which is ridiculous. So, because we're all born with strengths, and whatever they are meant to be, you know, that's up to you to you know, work on that, and make it do it. Now I'm talking out of my butt, but so I just, you know what I mean? It totally makes sense what I'm saying. So I don't know totally how to answer, because that's a lot of questions.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, in terms of creating music, I think, I mean, there's so many different ways that music comes to pretty much anybody. But I really think it's important to learn how to, which is what I'm learning now more than ever. And it reminds me of being a kid, but just being able to go into that, like, you're going into another realm, really, or connecting with it full on. And I keep telling people it's why why we go into these dark room and ceremonies or sweat lodges, and they're aligned in directions and everything, and we can't see, so we can see through here. So we can connect through here, and that's why there's sound, also songs and breathing, and all of this, it helps us to get to that other place, and we need to go there. That's what heals everything. That's what, that's how things are created. All things created. So I think that's an important part of everyday life, really. And it's so hard for us to get to that, but we have to make that time to really use our body is the technology. We are the technology. We connect with ourselves. And those visions, they come to us because we make them. We make them, you know? We are the creators. So so it opens, and you just go, and so much can come to you in terms of healing your body, and healing the energies around. I mean, it just goes on, and just receiving, opening up to receive whatever it is that you need and want. And yeah, so that's for any art form or any, you know, we were born to create, you know, so everybody has that. Everyone, you know, we're plugged in at all times. You just have to know how to use that. And it's so simple.
Yeah.
So that's, I hope that answers something.
Yeah, it does. And it's I think there's this interesting thing that that seems to keep coming up over the course of the summit, which is number one, this idea of play, and like how a child approaches things, which is just like they just show up, you know. It's sometimes about showing up for that empty space, or the playground, or the you know, the dark room, as you're saying. It's like you know, the connecting or the finding is actually pretty simple, and we load all of these like barriers, as Denise was saying earlier, you know, barriers, or like, you know, it's just like mental chatter of like what needs to be in place in order for this creativity to happen, you know, this kind of like first this and this and this and this and this, and then, you know, instead of just realizing that, no, if I just show up to that empty page, or that empty space, or that guitar, something is bound to happen. And I may or may not like it, but it's like just understanding that showing up for the creative process has to be enough, you know, like just being able to be involved in a creative process has to be enough. And that, you know, just show up, show up somehow, you know. I'm gonna see. I guess we can wrap up here, but I wanted to make sure that if anybody has any questions, specific questions for Pura Fé, that we address them. I hear from Candia. I don't know if you know Candia Crazy Horse. Have you ever met Candia Crazy Horse? She's amazing. She's in New York too.
Oh,
She's amazing. Pura Fé, and Celeste is on as well, chatting. I guess I'm like, I could do this forever. Heather asks, what art are you enjoying right now? Books, music, anything? Is there anything that's really been resonating with you or touching you that we should know about and check out?
you would be so disgusted if I told you.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes,
because because we have 5 kids in the house, and there's 3 men and me, and my husband, his brother, and their nephew, my nephew. So, and 5 children, little. So and we have a guest as well, and my niece is coming with her child. I hear from Puerto Rico she's coming. I'm like, oh my god! It's I don't really get to do. I'm constantly cleaning and yelling at everybody and cooking, and I'm not the only one that cooks, but I cook a lot, and so now and then I have to, you know, this whole Zoom thing and online thing is so consuming for almost everybody, right?
Yeah.
As if social media wasn't bad enough, you know, the Facebook thing, but now we have to do, our whole life is online now.
Yeah.
And our work is online. So it's crazy. So I don't really get to do, I have a whole sewing room that I don't use anymore. And I've got I just really am not creating as much as I should. And but I was very excited yesterday about finding the meat grinder, because my brother-in-law's and nephew went and caught a moose. So I was really psyched about, so that was an art project for me.
Yes.
Setting it up, cleaning everything up, cleaning up this grinder and making moose burgers. So that's where my creativity is gone these days. And then learning how to record with equipment and make a video that sounds professional. So I guess my next projects are to record and try to send files and collaborate with people.
Yeah.
Those words right there really make me laugh, to think that I can actually do that. It's just like, what else? You know, but anyway, that is the dream goal, is to be able to record with people and put out badass videos. And what comes to mind is that guy named Q Park, that New York City Korean guy out in the streets. He puts the headphones on and he's dancing to Lady Gaga, and then in real life he sounds like, and that's how I feel like my project. I'm gonna make this album, and then it's gonna sound like anyway.
I love it. I'll take it.
Okay.
I actually have now another question occurred to me. Is there any yummy recipe you can share with us? Like, what do you love to make? Let's just talk about food for one second, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, I stir fry a lot.
Yum.
I grew up around a lot of Chinese people, so I was in their kitchens, and my first husband also. So that stuck with me, and so I stir fry a lot of meat and veggies, and it's nothing you don't know. So I cut up a lot of ginger and garlic.
Veggies in the pan.
Yeah.
Put it on some rice. Call it a day.
That's it. But I use wild rice and turmeric and moose meat, and those are the special occasions when we get a lot of that. Then I'll be cooking that way, and so stews, and the only pie I know how to make is my grandma's sweet potato pie.
Yum.
Can
we maybe get that from you for an upcoming country soul cookbook or something?
Sure.
Oh, that sounds.
I hope you don't mind, Grandma. I'm going to give it away.
You can check with Grandma first. So we'll. I won't make you do it right now because I know you got to go through all the gatekeepers on that one. Oh, Pura, I wish I could just talk to you forever. We're going to do this again. We're like, I don't even know what the word is. We're floored that you could join us this weekend. It has meant so much to hear your words and your wisdom and hear your music and just introduce you to people who might not have heard you before. And I don't know. I just hope this is the very beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you. I feel like someone I've known all my life.
Yes, I feel the same. I feel the same. And I hope we can go down the rabbit hole again soon.
Anytime. Thank you. It doesn't have to be online either.
Yeah, we'll just keep in touch.
And I hope you get home again down in North Carolina and come visit you.
Yes, anytime. We've got the guest room ready for you anytime. Okay. With however many you want to bring with you.
Okay.
I've got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, so I'm sure everyone would have a great time.
Oh yeah, that's my nephew Lawrence.
Hi, Lawrence.
He's as big as the moose they caught.
Nice.
Okay. Well,
yeah, we'll
thank
bring both Cary Morin and Pura Fé back to NC soon. You'll play at North Star Church of the Arts. You will feel it on the ground there. I promise you. You'll love it. Once all of these, once the shenanigans are over and the earth has healed a little bit more and we can all hug each other, I'm going to give you the biggest hugs in the world.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, well, take care, and I guess we'll go.
Okay.
I'm like, no.
Well, thank you again. Very honored.
Oh, come on, people. I don't even know what to say. I can't talk anymore. Just bring something else on.